and Bezos, the world's richest man, in large part because of his focus on producing earnings not in the next quarter, but 5, 10, and 20 years down the road. While the U.S. economy has no doubt benefited in this century from CEO founders like Jeff Bezos, who are able to focus on the longer term, the truth is that most public company CEOs are not visionary founders. Rather, they are increasingly focused on next quarter's earnings. And the focus is becoming more intense than ever before for a variety of reasons. The tenure for most public company CEOs is shorter than in the past, and shorter tenure inevitably means CEOs tend to focus on shorter-term objectives. Hedge funds with quite short-term investment goals have increasingly become large investors in public company stocks, and they prompt these companies to also focus on the short term. Some of these hedge funds, along with other investment vehicles, are taking on the role of activist investors. Activist is now often a euphemism for short-term investment goals. Well-capitalized, algorithm-based, computer-driven investors are growing in market importance and size, and their focus is inevitably toward serving short-term gains. Plaintiffs' lawyers are invariably focusing their attention on short-term earnings declines that may not have been anticipated by markets. Few lawsuits are filed against public companies for failing to project sufficiently long-term earnings and corporate growth objectives. Regulatory oversight from federal and state governments also invariably focuses on short-term earnings surprises, more typically on the downside. Here, too, regulators do not penalize CEOs or companies for failing to have solid 5- and 10-year earnings growth plans. The consequence of these more modern phenomena seem to be binary. CEOs of public companies are paying more attention than ever to the next quarter's earnings. Or those CEOs who can control whether a company should go public are choosing to keep a company private for as long as possible so they can avoid the public company need to produce higher and higher quarterly earnings. Today, although the number of companies in the United States is significantly higher than 20 years ago, the number of public companies is down by 50%, from roughly 7,300 to 3,600. Of course, every company does not have the opportunity to go or stay private. Those companies that are public often have little choice in remaining public, and thereby their CEOs are increasingly subjecting themselves to the just described modern pressures to focus on the short term. Why is this really a problem? Great companies prosper by focusing on longer-term objectives, by spending money on research and development and capital improvements. And economies, and thereby societies, prosper by having companies grow, innovate, and improve over longer periods, rather than just next quarter. A number of financial industry leaders have in recent years tried to point out the increasing dangers of short-termism to companies' and economies' futures, and they have succeeded in making the issue one that is appropriate for serious public dialogue. Unfortunately, the increasing public attention to the issue has to date had less measurable impact than might be desired. Perhaps some incremental and much-needed impact will be achieved by a serious look at some of the public company CEOs who, in the current short-term atmosphere, chose, at some financial risk to their companies and themselves, to focus on the long term. They might well be viewed as the corporate profiles encourage. 4 experienced business practitioners and scholars, Dennis Carey, Michael Useem, Rodney Zemmel, and Brian Dumaine, have in fact provided just such a serious look. In Go Long, they have provided a well-researched analysis of how 6 current-generation public company CEOs successfully ignored short-term concerns. The results in all of these cases were stronger companies and better contributors to the well-being of their employees, suppliers, customers, and shareholders. For anyone who is concerned about the importance of forcing longer-term objectives into a public company short-term mindset and who wants to learn more about some of the heroes of this effort, this book is a godsend. Indeed, it should be mandatory reading for the CEOs and boards of all public companies. And perhaps because of this book,